Hello YouTube, it's DasGregor, and welcome back to another Linux First Impressions. This week we'll be looking at the Korora project. The Korora project was requested by a subscriber that I take a look at, do a review of. So, without further ado, the Korora project is an Australian-based distribution. It is based off of Fedora. We'll be looking at the version 19 Bruce edition, 64-bit Gnome. Now, as many of you know, I'm not a big Gnome fan, but that was the version they requested. Korora does come in a few other different types of GUIs, such as KDE, and I do believe XFCE. So far, everything within Korora has been very stable. Have not had very many troubles. One really big pet peeve, and I'll get to that in a moment, but let's talk about the install. The install was quite interesting. I had never seen this particular style of installation before. Now, at first, I thought it was a Korora thing, that maybe they had built all this stuff. Afterwards, when I was doing some research and learning that this was based off of Fedora, I found out that this was actually Fedora's install. Now, I'll be quite honest with you. I thought it was flaky. I thought it was a little convoluted. I was unimpressed, especially with the partitioning and the disk setup area. It was a little bit confusing to me, and I did feel a little nervous when setting that part up, because the last thing you want to do when installing multiple OSs on a system is to choose the wrong partition or click on the wrong thing to mount or to accidentally format, and without realizing it, you've just kind of blown away something you didn't really want to do. It's the one part of the install you gotta pay a lot of attention to, and I kind of feel that Fedora did a real poor job with this part of their install. You know, no fault at all to Korora project, because you know they're just basing their distribution off of Fedora, but I thought that left a lot to be desired, and it was very unimpressive. Other than that section of the install, everything else went well. No major issues. Everything did install correctly. Now, when I got into Korora, I was just kind of checking a few things and making stuff work, and I ran into a very annoying problem right off the bat that just really bugged me to death, and that was scrolling. Now, I went into the settings area for the touchpad here, found it and said, okay, let's take a look at this. And you've got your primary left, right, your double click, fast, your touchpad pointer speed. It has two-finger scroll. I tried two-finger scroll, that didn't work. I do like it when it disables the mouse when it's typing, so that's a nice feature to have, because I don't know how many times the good old palm gets in the way and causes problems, or that. And I hate using tapping, because sometimes when you're typing, your palm taps the touchpad and it starts off now. But you notice none of those types of items are listed here. There was no way to turn on or off or customize that I could find any other features of the touchpad. So this program here was very limiting and very disappointing. Now, while doing some research, I looked all over the Korora websites and couldn't find anything. I don't like to bother developers or groups when all I'm doing is just taking a look at their software for a review, and I know that within a week it's probably going to get blown away for the next review. So I didn't bother to try to reach out to anybody, and so I don't want to fault anything on that. But as I realized that this is a Fedora based distribution, I started doing other searches outside of Korora, more based towards the Fedora side, to see if I could find anybody who could fix anything. And what I did find was that someone had pointed out that it would be very beneficial to install a program called gpointing, and then use that to get your scrolling to work. So that is what I did. I got this gpointing device set up. It immediately was able to allow me to really configure my touchpad, get it working right, enable palm detection, for instance, go into tapping and disable it for my preferences, set up vertical scrolling so that vertical scrolling now works, and then his speed and such. Very good program to know. If any of you guys are Fedora users and don't know about this, or someone's complaining to you about this problem, I noticed there were a lot of people out there complaining about it, but very few solutions. So it was nice to find that you could use gpointing to fix it. The next issue I want to talk about, which once again is not a Korora issue but a Fedora issue, and this kind of goes back to why I don't like Red Hat, and that is if a Linux distribution is proper, they should make it so that all the libraries, headers, system information is stored in the same spot, not in customized locations. Now, when I went to set up Simple Screen Recorder and compile it from code, because it's the only way you can get it on Fedora, it was failing over and over again with the FFmpeg header files. So after looking to see where is the setting, where is the /configure looking for them, why is it failing, and what can I do to fix this, I found that because they're in a unique spot, the program fails when trying to configure where to find all of its development files to build Simple Screen Recorder. What I ended up having to do was create new symlinks to place links to those headers where the software is looking for it. Now the thing is, this is the first time I've run into this type of an issue. I've tried many different other flavors, and what I think it is, and this is of course my opinion, is that just like Red Hat, and since Fedora is a Red Hat derivative, Red Hat has kind of, you can't even call Red Hat Linux anymore. It has been so changed and rearranged that you can't work with Red Hat and then really go to other Linux flavors and feel like, oh yeah, what I did in Red Hat's going to work perfectly somewhere else, because they've changed too much of it. They've made it too unique to their own distribution. And it appears that Fedora is taking a page from their manual and starting to do some of the same things, which really screws up common developers when you should be able to write an application that it doesn't matter if it's Debian or Fedora or Slackware or Gentoo, all those types of different major core flavors. It shouldn't matter. You should be able to install on any of them without any issues and know that this is the core location for these types of files. So I kind of felt like that was a big failure on Fedora's part, not on Korora. Now, as I always do in a lot of systems, and as you saw in last week's setup, I try to do the updates to see, will it break it? Does it still work? The updates went smoothly, everything went well. Very happy with that portion of the install and just the tryout of the system in general. Now, like I said, I've been using Korora for about a week now. I didn't want to do that. I'm going to close it. I don't need to save it. Been using it for about a week. Have not had very many problems. Other than that scrolling issue, which was easy to find a fix for, it's been very reliable. I've enjoyed it. And they've done a lot of good things with GNOME. I don't know if the team for Korora, have set up some of this stuff, but I remember a little while back I did a video review of a GNOME version, and all I was trying to do, it had so many different bugs in it, it drove me crazy. Now this is using 3.8, and one of the things that I had tried to do was going into date and time settings and change where my location was and set the time and date. Now before that, I showed you in that how I could change it and change it, go out of it, and when it changed it, nothing worked. This works fine. I have not had any problems with permissions like I had with that other flavor. Everything seems to run well. You know, it's your typical GNOME look, feel. Nothing spectacular to that, just basic. You see if I can get that out of my way for a little bit. You know, they do have some very good forums, information about how to get help. One thing, and I'm not sure if it's a GNOME or a Korora thing, because like I said, I haven't reviewed a lot of different GNOME things, but when GNOME first started up, it actually gave me a little bit of a, this is how you do things. And I learned a few tricks and things, like hitting the little button there to get to here so I can type in stuff. Yeah, I've learned also little items like showing all the applications. As you can see here, you know, they've got all of this right here, the most frequently used items, for instance. Instead of using GUVC Viewer like I normally do, I did install it, but it did seem like the drivers weren't working very well with it. So I went ahead and went with the native cheese. That's what we're recording with right now, but I am using Simple Screen Recorder. You know, if we look at all the applications, just give you a brief review of, you know, it'll just let you look at those real quick, see what you see. Point out just a few things. It did come natively with Handbrake, which I think is a great utility to use with video files. Firefox, of course, the GIMP. Inkscape is a really good program for I think it's vector drawing. Of course, it did come with LibreOffice, a few games, Nibbles, Mines, Solitaire, etc. Of course, I had to install the Qt because Qt is a KDE actual development environment, but it's needed for Simple Screen Recorder. So, not very much, but it's enough to get you going. The software section seems to be pretty easy to work with. I'll pull that up real quick here. You pretty much go in there and you can either go by what you're looking for by going into the subcategories over here. Now, one thing I find is interesting, and I don't know if this is going, you know, outside to a different database on the web or something, but it seems to be really slow, and it's strange that when you click on one of these things, you know, it's waiting in queue. Now, like I said, I haven't, this is actually the first Fedora project that I've looked at for a while, so I'm a little rusty with Fedora, but it just seems a little slow and odd to me, the way that some of these take to pull up, but others, you know, maybe it's now that they've all loaded. I'm not sure if it's loading from the network, like I said, but it does seem to take a little bit of time. If we were to look for Tux Racer, for instance, sit there waiting in queue, waiting in queue, waiting in queue. Sometimes some of the stuff I was looking for, I could sit there for a long time. Another thing that I don't like about this is how it throws the description up there first, when I'm more interested, for myself, I'm more interested in the name of the package. It does show that it's there, for instance, and if we were to click on it, it gives a little brief review of what it is. We were to say to install it. It should go ahead and go through as soon as we apply changes here. It doesn't really give you too much of an idea of how long it's going to take. You know, constantly waiting in queue, resolving dependencies, installing, but it doesn't really tell you too much. Yeah, I finally learned, hey, pay attention to the bar down here. It makes more sense to look at that. So as you can see, it's getting them, installing them, and downloading everything, and getting it running. And it is nice too that once it's installed, you can tell it to run it or to close it and keep on going, and you do know that at least it was installed properly with no errors. All in all, Korora is very stable, user-friendly, definitely user-friendly. It would be a good, if someone does like GNOME, it would be a good environment to point them to, because I do feel that they did a good job at making this simple and intuitive. The only little things I would say is it'd be really awesome if the Korora team incorporated gpointing into their flavors so that it was already there for scrolling, and maybe put something in the README or in the GNOME help to point them to use gpointing to set up their scrolling, because I could not get it to work any other way. So if that's the only way you can do it, then I think that would be the best thing to do. I don't know if that's unique to my system or if that is a problem with many different systems. I noticed that one person was complaining about this problem in the KDE side of the house, but he was able to find a different location to fix things. Since this isn't KDE, I didn't really pay attention to that. I wanted to find a GNOME solution. All in all, A+. So thanks for suggesting Korora. Appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be looking at another distribution next week, and I appreciate your suggestions for distributions. You know, I pretty much, if I don't have anything in the list, I'm getting at the bottom of the list of the 4 or 5 that were recently requested. So if I don't hear a suggestion soon, I'll just go to Distro Watch, find something, whatever's the newest that I haven't looked at. I do try to only do 1 review per distro. And granted, I'm setting a precedent because this is the first year I've tried to do this. I believe this is review number 27, and I am trying to do 52 distributions in 52 weeks, once a week. So if anybody has suggestions, if I haven't done them already, I'd be glad to look at them, and we'll go on from there. So as I always say, if it's morning, evening, noon, or night, whatever you're having, enjoy it. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoy my Gentoo in review videos. I was quite shocked after giving such praise to Gentoo about using the old grub 097. I think I said 094 in one of my comments, but I meant 097. And then I saw when I updated my system that there was a news article pointing us to the new 2.0 version, and oh man, I don't like the 2.0 version of Grub. I've been using the older version for so long. It makes sense, it runs well. When I look at the configurations for the new version, it looks like a bunch of extra garbly goop that doesn't need to be there, when a simple 3-line command, title, kernel, init script if you need to set it up, and you're good to go, versus all this extra garbage that GNOME 2, or not GNOME, Grub 2 is thrown in there. And that's for another day though. Anyway, thank you for watching. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye.